Hey guys, what's going on? Counterspell Hater here, back with another EDH guide. Today we are looking at Torens, Fist of the Angels, or Dr. John Seymour. Uh, for one generic, a green and white, he is a legendary human cleric, 2/2 with training, meaning that whenever a creature with training attacks, uh, with whenever a creature with training attacks, if it attacks with a creature that has greater power than that creature, the creature with training gets +1/+1. So say we were to attack with Dr. John here and a 3/3. Well, then he would get a +1/+1 counter. And so would the green and white 1/1 human soldier creature tokens with training that he creates whenever you cast a creature spell. So that's the goal of this deck, to cast a lot of creature spells. So first we have our creature spells, and then we have like value for like Dr. John here, and like what we're doing. So we have Vorinclex, Monstrous Raider up first. For 4 generic and double green, is a 6/6 Phyrexian Predator, legendary creature with trample and haste. That says if you would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So double counters. Bramble Snap. For 1 generic and a green, it is a 1/1 elemental with trample that says tap an untapped creature you control, and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So we can tap down some of our summoning sick creatures to give Bramble Snap a buff. Specifically, our creatures with training that have just been summoned by Dr. John. Next up, we have Iridescent Horn Beetle. This is more value, so I probably should put this down below. Because for 4 generic and a green, is a 3/4 insect that says beginning of your end step, create a 1/1 green insect creature token for each possible counter you put on creatures under your control this turn. If you haven't seen this in action, go check out some of the MTG Arena videos on my channel that have been titled like Horn Beetle, something Horn Beetle or Iridescent Horn Beetle, because those are videos that showcase this card and how crazy it can be. So go check them out. And then we have Champion of the Parish for a white. It is a 1/1 human soldier that says whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Champion of the Parish. And the tokens that Dr. John creates are 1/1 green and white human creature tokens with training. And Arceus Acolyte for green and white, it is a 2/2 human cleric archer with reach and lifelink. And Outlast for hybrid green white. So for hybrid green white, you can tap it and put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Outlast only has a sorcery, so only on your turn most times. And each other creature you control without a +1/+1 counter on it has Outlast. So pretty nice. Karametra, God of Harvest for 3 generic, a green and white, is a legendary enchantment creature god, 6/7 indestructible. It says as long as your devotion to green and white is less than 7, Karametra is in the creature. So your devotion to a certain color is like the amount of opponents you control with mana symbols of that color. So say we had Karametra out and Iridescent Horn Beetle out. So our devotion to green in that case would be 2, and our devotion white would be 1. So in total, we'd have 3 devotion to the colors that are needed to make Karametra, God of Harvest, a creature. And whenever we cast a creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains card, put it onto the battlefield, tapped, and shuffle your library. And this doesn't have to be a basic forest or plains. This just says forest or plains. So it could be like a temple garden, yeah, or something like that. Sigarda, Hedron's Heron's Grace, excuse me. For three generic, a green and a white is a legendary 4/5 angel with flying that says you and humans you control have hexproof, meaning you cannot be targeted by spells or abilities your opponents control, and also your humans. So now that your humans with training are even more safe. And for true generic, you can exile a card from your graveyard and put a 1/1 white human soldier creature token onto the battlefield. Then we have Hamza, Guardian of Erashin. For 4 generic or green and white, it is a legendary 5/5 elephant warrior. Not elephant warrior, just elephant warrior, in case you were confused. This spell costs 1 generic less to cast for each creature you control with a +1/+ counter on it. And creature spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast for each creature you control with a +1/+ counter on it. And as a result of training, we're going to be getting those +1/+ counters, so it's going to be pretty nice. Creature spells we cast are going to be pretty cheap. And then we have Wayfaring Temple, which is an elemental that for 1 generic, a green and white, its power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. And when it deals damage, combat damage to a player, populates, meaning you put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of a creature token you control. Tristani, Selesnia's Voice, is a 2/5 Dryad for double green and double white legendary creature that says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. And then for 1 generic green and white, you can tap and populate, and once again create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. Then we have Leonor, Autumn Sovereign. For 2 generic, a green and white, is a legendary 0/4 human noble with Covain. So at the beginning, meaning that it is a trigger, is a like ability that is triggered by you having creatures with 3 more different powers. So what I mean by that is, for example, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+ counter on up to 1 target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, draw a card. That's what I mean by that example of Covain. So we are being awarded by this, so we can like increase the power of a certain creature. And then we're probably gonna be drawing a card because we're gonna have 3 or more different powers on our board state. Creature powers, I should say. Heron Blade Elite for 2 generic and a green is a 1/1 human warrior with vigilance that says whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+ counter on Heron Blade Elite, and then it can tap for X mana of any 1 color, where X is its power. Then there's Kyler, Sigardian Emissary. For 3 generic, a green and white, is a legendary 2/2 human cleric that says whenever another human enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+ counter on Kyler, Sigardian Emissary, and other humans you control get +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. So that does not just includes, that isn't just +1/+ counters, that could be -1/- counters for any reason. That could also be like charge counters, fate counters, slime counters, although in that case you're most likely losing abilities, because that slime counter is probably coming from a sludge monster. That was in another video, so actually it wasn't, but still. Anyways, moving on, we have Harvest Celebrant is a legendary 0/0 tree folk for X and double green, and it enters the battlefield with a number of +1/+ counters on it equal to the amount of mana spent to cast it. So it's not just X, it's also the double green. All right. And then remove a +1/+ counter from Harvest. Bye. And then prevent all damage that will be dealt to this turn to another target creature with a +1/+ counter on it. So you can prevent damage being dealt from like your humans with training that may have already have +1/+ counters on them. And So that means like red essentially cannot touch your stuff. Dragon Lord Dramocha for 4 generic, a green and white is a legendary 5/7 Elder Dragon that cannot be countered and has flying and lifelink, and says your opponents can't cast spells during your turn, so that makes you even more safe. Sunscorched Regent for 3 generic and double white is a 4/3 dragon with flying that says whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a pulse counter on Sunscorched Regent and you gain life. So as your opponents are casting spells, this is getting bigger and bigger and gaining you more and more life, meaning that when you go to swing with this and like tons of other creatures you control with training, it could be big enough that Sunscorched Regent's power is greater than those creatures' power you control with training that are attacking, that they get those pulsable counters. So another creature that is nice because it can buff itself up, just like Forgotten Ancient, because for 3 generic and a green is an 0/3 elemental that says whenever a player, so that's on any side of the table, so you, your opponents, whenever a player casts a spell, may put a postal count on Forgotten Ancient. So once again, like Sunscorched Regent getting bigger and bigger, potentially big enough that it can cause the training abilities on your creature's trigger when this creature and your other creatures with training attack. And also at the beginning of your upkeep, may move any number of pulsable counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. Other creatures, keyword. So that means you can like essentially distribute. So in case this isn't big enough to trigger off training for your creatures with training, then you can move this creature's counters, this creature's +1/+1 counters onto like another really big creature. Then we have Jorvo, Lord of Garendrick for triple green. It is a 0/0 giant noble legendary creature, giant noble, I should say. And he enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+ counters. And whenever another green creature enters the battlefield under control, and by the way, the humans that we are making with that have training, thanks to Dr. John Seward, I don't know, are green and white, so they will trigger this ability. Put a +1/+ counter on Jorvo. Then if that creature's power is greater than Jorvo's, put another +1/+ counter on Jorvo. So pretty nice. Critterhoof Behemoth for 5 generic and triple green is a beast 5/5 with haste, and when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn. X the number of creatures you control. So great way to finish off. I think we're not done with buff up and like creature spells yet. Mathiel, the Bounteous Dawn, I think, is a legendary 2/2 unicorn for 2 generic and a green and a white with lifelink. And at the beginning of each end step, if you gain life this turn, distribute up to that many +1/+ counters among a number of target creatures. And then we have my Microlith, one of my favorite cards. Definitely should be played in like these sort of decks that produce a lot of creature tokens or like ones to sacrifice. Because for 3 generic and double green is a 4/4 fungus with Devour 2, meaning that as it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures, and then this creature enters the battlefield with twice that many +1/+ counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token for each +1/+ counter on Microlith. It's pretty nice. Dritz do Urden? I have no idea. For 3 generic in green and white is a legendary 3/3 elf ranger with double strike. And when it enters the battlefield, create Wayvar? I have no idea. A legendary 4/1 green cat creature token with trample. And whenever a creature dies, if it had power greater than Dritz's power, put a number of +1/+ counters on Dritz equal to the difference. So Dritz can easily get big pretty quick and catch up to like your creatures with training, and eventually even surpass them, causing them to trigger even more. or more likely to trigger, because training only triggers once on a creature, unless there are for some reason multiple instances of training. Enlisted Worm for 4 generic, a green and white is a 5/5 worm with Cascade. So when you play this spell, remove cards from the top of your library from the game, will exile to be put short. Until you exile a non-land card that costs less, you may play it without paying its mana cost and put the exiled cards on the bottom in a random order on the bottom of your library. So you get this and another permanent, non-land permanent card cast without paying its mana cost as 5 CMC or less. So you could get 2 creature spells out of this, so that's 2 triggers off of Dr. John. So not too bad. Gladeheart Cavalry is pretty good, however, because for 5 generic and double green is a 6/6 elf knight that says when it enters the battlefield, support 6, meaning you put a +++ counter on each of up to 6 other target creatures. So buff up like 6 other creatures that don't have training, maybe. And whenever a creature you control with a ++ counter on it dies, you gain life. So punishes our opponent for probably killing our stuff or making a sacrifice. Bronze Beak Moa, this can get big fast because for 2 generic, a green and white is a 2/2 bird that says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Bronze Beak Moa gets +3/+3 until end of turn. Add trample to that, this can get big due to how many creature spells you're casting, and meaning most likely it will trigger off training on all of your creatures that have training due to like how many creatures are entering the battlefield under your control in a turn. Enduring Scale Lord is a 4/4 dragon for 4 generic, a green and white with flying that says whenever one or more ++ counters are placed on another creature you control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Enduring Scale Lord. So if you have 3 creatures with training, and then you attack those creatures, and Enduring Scale Lord, training triggers 3 times, putting a ++ counter on each of those creatures with training, and that is a separate trigger, so a separate counter. So each separate time, since those counters are being put on each separate time, that triggers off Enduring Scale Lord. So in other words, your Scale Lord gets 3 ++ counters is what I was trying to say, but I made it complicated. So if you were to have like a lot of creatures with training and then like suddenly they were triggered off, Enduring Scale Lord would get that many ++ counters equals to like how many training counters training triggers went off. You get what I'm saying? Sorry if I made that confusing. Crowned Ceratok is not that confusing because for 3 generic and a green is a 4/3 Rhino with trample, and that says each creature you control with a ++ counter on it has trample. Battlefront Kushank is a 3/4 beast for 4 generic and a green that cannot be blocked by more than one creature, and each creature you control with a ++ counter can't be blocked by more than one creature. So your opponent has to use 1 creature and 1 creature only. So this can really whittle down forces, or due to the fact that like your opponent can't multi-blocks and kill your creatures, so they'll stay around to kill more. Inspiring Call. I think now, yeah, we're getting into all the non-creature stuff. So there's value for Dr. John and like what he's doing. So Inspiring Call to start off is an instant for 2 generic and a green that says draw a card for each creature you control with a ++ counter on it. Those creatures gain indestructible until end of turn, so more safety. Hardened Scales for green is an enchantment that says if one or more ++ counters would be placed on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are placed on it instead. So essentially doubling up the training ability to put 2 ++ counters on the creatures you control with training if they ever trigger. Doubling season for 4 generic and a green is an enchantment that says if an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many of those tokens instead. So twice the amount of 1/1 green and white human creature tokens with training are now being created by Dr. John. And if an effect would put 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it puts twice that many of those counters on that permanent instead. Now keep in mind, I don't think any of us have really realized this yet. Maybe. But this includes -1 counters, and like counters that negatively affect our creatures. So keep that in mind. But this can also, in short, also doubles the amount of like ++ counters that are put on our creatures when their training abilities trigger off. So that is nice. Parallel Lies for 3 generic and a green is an enchantment that says if an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many of those tokens onto the battlefield instead, or creates, to be put short. So now combined with doubling season, quadruple the amount of 1/1 green and white human creature tokens with training are now being created under your control, thanks to Dr. John whenever you cast a creature spell. Second Harvest is an instant for 2 generic and double green that says for each token you control, put a token onto the battlefield that's a copy of that permanent. So this includes treasures and stuff, but more importantly, it's going to include our humans. So pretty nice. Primeval Bounty for 5 generic and a green is an enchantment that says whenever you cast a creature spell, put a 3/3 green beast creature token onto the battlefield. So payoff for casting creature spells like Dr. John wants us to. And whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put 3 ++ counters on target creature you control. So buff up a creature as a payoff for casting non-creature spells. If we don't have any, which there's a pretty good amount of non-creature spells within this deck. And whenever land is relevant under your control, you gain 2 life. So that's another payoff on its own, just keeping us in the game. Also for what's her face? Lafiel, the Bounteous Dawn. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Because then that's more life gain for when this triggers. Be sure to order your triggers if they have like end-step stuff. So, and if you have Iridescent or Beetle out, because you could get more ++ counters on creatures you control before the Iridescent Horn Beetle trigger, and then you can get like the maximum amount of insects. Just saying. Rite of Harmony is an instant for green and white that says whenever a creature or enchantment enters the battlefield under control, this turn, draw a card, and then flashback of 2 generic and a green and white, meaning you may cast it from your graveyard for this cost and then exile it. So you do that again. Cryptolith Rite, 1 generic and a green is an enchantment that says creatures you control have tap, add 1 mana, pay 1 color to mana pool. So if your creatures are just lying around, so say like your opponent has a Storm Tyler Leviathan that prevents all your stuff from attacking due to them not having Island Walk or flying, then Convert to Life with Right can help you by having them tap for mana, or if you just are too afraid to attack or just too early into the game. Or if you need it for like Court of Calling, which has Convoke, but still. For X, generic and triple green is an instant with Convoke that says, meaning your creatures can outcast it, because each creature you tap while casting this spell pays for 1 generic or 1 mana of a creature's color. So your creatures, the tokens you control can pay for the triple green and for a good amount of the X, and then you pay like a good amount more with your lands. And then that means, so what do you get out of it? So You search your library for your creature card with converted mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. This show your library. Well, with how many creature tokens we may have, we could probably get whatever we want from within our deck. So that'd be pretty nice. Next, we have Glare of Subdual. For 2 generic, a green and white is an enchantment that we can tap and an untapped creature we control and tap target artifact or creature, probably most likely one that our opponent controls. So what would happen there is we could tap down our entire opponent's board, maybe, and then just swing in for the win. Annotated procession for 3 generic and a white is an enchantment that says if an effect would create one or more tokens under your control, it creates twice as many of those tokens instead. So parallel lies, but white. Ajani, Valiant Protector for 4 generic, a green and white is a legendary planeswalker. Well, planeswalker, I guess back in the day, because and for it enters in with 4. He enters in with 4 loyalty, excuse me. And he can put for his +2 ability. Put 2 +1 counters up to 1 target creature. So again, that is like all the more likely for your creatures with training to trigger off and give themselves +1 counters. And then +1, you may has you reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card, and you put that card into your hand. The rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. And then -11, put X +1 +1 counters on target creature, where X is your life total. That creature gains trample on its turn, so probably end the game, and definitely guarantee that your creatures with training trigger off when they attack with that creature that you put all those many +1 counters on. And by the way, we have every Ajani in here except for the red-white ones. So like all but one Ajani is in here. So now we have Ajani Wise Counselor, which is a legendary planeswalker, Ajani once again, that comes in with 5 loyalty for 3 generic and double white. Oh, and I think I've neglected to talk about planeswalkers and their loyalty. So in case you didn't know about loyalty, a planeswalker comes in with loyalty. So if they have 0 loyalty, then they die. So there's that. And loyalty can be removed via damage dealt by creatures or spells, or planeswalkers can be destroyed. There are planeswalker removal spells. And also if you cannot so say I wanted to -9, but I only have 5 loyalty. Well, I can't do that until I have 9 loyalty on my Ajani here. So that's planeswalkers in a nutshell for you. Anyways, so Ajani's +2 here now is has you gain 1 life for each creature you control. -3 gives creatures you control +2/+2 until end turn, and then -9 put X +1 counters on target creature, where X is your life total, except it doesn't gain trample, which would have been sweet. Ajani Unyielding, for 4 generic, a green and white, is another Ajani that has 4 loyalty, and you can up his loyalty by 2, and then reveal the top 3 cards of your library. Put all non-land permanent cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. -2, exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. You can do this to your creatures if you're desperate enough and you need that life. Then -9, put 5 +1 counters on each creature you control, and 5 loyalty counters on each other planeswalker you control. And this is going to be helpful because we have literally every Ajani except for 1, being the red-white. Ajani Steadfast. It is Ajani once again for 3, this time for 3 generic and white, and he comes in with once again 4 loyalty. and he can +1. So then until in a turn, up to 1 target creature gets +1/+1 and gains first strike, vigilance, and lifelink. So nice all in one. So vigilance allowing them to block even after that combat. Lifelink to get you up in life, probably back into the game. And first strike meaning that you can hit before anything with like death touch, or like any creature without first strike, killing it before that creature that you are attacking right into kills your creature with first strike and lifelink and vigilance. So in all, pretty nice. -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. So buff up your creatures and planeswalkers. -7, you get an emblem with, if a source would deal damage to you or a planeswalker you control, prevent all but one of that damage. Nice. So essentially it makes your opponents, it makes it impossible for your opponents to kill you. Ajani Goldmane for 2 generic and double white is once again Ajani for 4 loyalty, is what he comes in with, and can +1 to give you 2 life. -1, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and those creatures gain vigilance until end turn. And -6, put a white avatar creature token onto the battlefield. It has this creature's power and toughness are each equal to your life total. So definitely probably gonna promise triggers for your green-white 1/1 humans with training. Ajani, Inspiring Leader. For 4 generic and double white, it is a legendary planeswalker. Ajani once again, coming in with 5 loyalty this time. Look out, because he can up his loyalty by 2, and which will cause you to gain 2 life and put 2 +1/+1 counters on up to 1 target creature. -3, to exile target creature, its controller gains 2 life. And -10, creatures you control gain flying and double strike until in turn. So evasion and double strike, meaning you deal double damage. And at that point, it's just game over. Because we also have Ajani the Great-Hearted for 2 generic, a green and a white, is once again Ajani for 5, who comes in with 5 loyalty and has a static ability, meaning this is around all the time. Of creatures you control at vigilance, +1, you gain 3 life, and then -2, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control and a loyalty counter on each other planeswalker you control. So pretty nice. Ajani, Mentor of Heroes. For 3 generic, a green and white, we have Ajani from Theros, like the original Theros. Once again, coming in with 4 loyalty, so going back in the day. Up his loyalty by 1 to distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 target creatures you control. Up its loyalty by 1 again, except this time you look at the top 4 cards of your library as a result, and you may reveal an aura, creature, or planeswalker card from among them and put it into your hand with the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And -8, you gain 100 life. Congrats, you're a god, you're unkillable. As if you weren't already. But now you are. Ajani, Strength of the Pride, the final one. Guess who it is? It's Ajani once again. Oh my god. What a surprise. Because for 2 generic and double white, we're going back to 5 loyalty. And then you can up the loyalty by 1 to have you gain life equal to the number of creatures you control and plus the number of planeswalkers you control. And -2, you create a 2/2 white cat soldier creature token named Ajani's Pride Mate, which if you don't know what that is, it also with whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Ajani's Pride Mates. That thing broke standard, just letting you know. And then for 0, surprisingly enough, is his ultimate. If you have at least 15 or more life, then you're strong life, they'll exile Ajani's Strength of the Pride and each artifact and creature your opponents control. So that's bye-bye to their board state and bye-bye to their life total. And then our 50th card, Oath of Ajani, another Ajani card. Who would have guessed? Because for green and white, it's a legendary enchantment that says when Oath of Ajani enters the battlefield, put a +1 counter on each creature you control. And since we have so many Ajanis in here, like everyone except for red-white, bunch of curse spells you cast cost one less to cast. One generic less to cast. Excuse me. And then for our non-basic lands, we have Ideally Gorge, which is a plains that obviously taps for white. And then it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 3 or more planes. And when it enters untapped, put a +1 counter on target you control. Castle Garendrick is a land that enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a force. And that can tap for a green or for 2 generic and double green. It can tap to add 6 green, but that mana can only be spent on creatures to cast creature spells or activate abilities of creatures you control. Wind Brisk Heights is a land with Hideaway. This land enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile one of them face down, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library. It can tap to add a white to your mana pool, and then for white, it can tap, and you may play the exile card without paying its mana cost if you attack with 3 more creatures this turn, which you will have. And finally, then we have Mirror in the Moaning Well, which is a legendary land that can tap to add a colorless, or for 3 generic, it can tap to sacrifice a creature you control, and then you gain life equal to the sacrifice creature's toughness, so get you back into the game. Karn's Bastion is a land that can tap to add a colorless, or for 4 generic, can tap and proliferate, meaning you choose any number of opponents and or players, and then give them each another counter of each kind already there. So loyalty counters, +1/+1 counters, things like that. Then we have a creature land, Cave of the Frost Dragon, which is a land that if you control 2 or more other lands, it enters the battlefield tapped. It can tap for a white, or for 4 generic and a white, it can become a 3/4 white dragon creature with flying until in turn it's still in. And then we have our basic lands. So 23 forests, and then 23 basic plains. In the end of this video, hope you all have enjoyed Dr. John Seward or Seward, I don't know, aka Torens, Fist of the Angels. Hope you have enjoyed this video in general and the other videos I have posted. Please subscribe. We are up to 8 subscribers. We are only 2 away from 10, and then I do like a 10 subscriber special of some sort. However, I thank you guys for watching and going all the way. Chatterfang, I like how it's been getting views, so please keep that going because it kind of snapped, but still fine because it's got 29 views and I'm early into YouTube, so I'm honestly happy that you guys even watch that. You guys are killing it with like most of the views in general on these videos. Keep sending the positive feedback. Love you all who are supporting me, and I will see you in the next EDH guide. Oh, don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell that way you don't miss more of this content, and share this video with others. Bye.